LaDena Laine.
Yes, yes, you
Good.
pronounced it correctly. Most people say Lane.
That is absolutely what I was saying. I have to say I did some research this past week, and I watched your interview with Nenad C on the Entre Musician. That's actually how I know how to pronounce it correctly.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I think it's really cool. Like, I mean, obviously you and I met through the Entre Musician, one of their weekly calls, and we touched base through that. And now I've spent a little time doing some research about your story, really, and it's really cool.
Thanks, thanks.
It's it's funny because I'm an international school teacher. I teach music, and people often they say, "Oh, it's so cool. You live in China," and for me, it's like it's just been my life. It's just where I've lived for most of the last 22 years where I live. But I get what they're saying now because when I looked at your story, I'm sure for you in a lot of ways it just feels like that. You moved there, you live there, that's your life, you know? Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I've lived here for over almost 30 years now, or so. Yeah, it feels. I mean, this is home. It
Yeah.
feels weird going back to the states.
Well, that's the reverse culture shock that we sometimes feel.
Once a little man went out to see the great big world. He put on his shoes, he went on his way, singing a little tune. Once a little man went out to sea.
So you studied as a chemist and you got your
Yeah,
BA in chemistry. And then,
and and then I got my master's here in Helsinki.
yeah. So as I understand it, basically when you got your BA at around that time, your parents decided that was in Florida. You're from Florida originally.
Yeah, well, I was raised in Indiana, where my mom moved back to, with my sister. But they moved to Florida for a short time when Dad got transferred, and then Dad got transferred again.
Okay. They decided to move, and you said, well, I'll move as well, but my move's not going to be back to Indiana. It's going to be to Finland. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you had a friend who was like an exchange student. You became good friends. You visited, and you decided, hey, I'm going to go live there. Is that right?
I did a internship before that, just before I graduated college, and so I think that's when I decided.
Okay.
I did a 3 month internship at the University of Tampere. So
Okay. And currently you're in a place, the spelling is A-O and then land. Is that pronounced island?
it's the A has a little O over the top of it,
Yeah,
so it's Åland
Åland. Okay.
in Swedish, but then in Finnish it's Ahvenanmaa.
Wow, that's quite different.
Yeah, well, Finnish is quite different.
I remember growing up, one of my closest friends in Toronto, in Pickering, actually, which is outside of Toronto, his mom is Finnish, and she would try to teach us words sometimes, but in Finnish, the sentences are words. Like it seems to me like a whole sentence like becomes a word. You don't really space them out. Am I right?
Well, because they put there's no prepositions, there's postpositions, which are combined onto the word. So
So it
it's
becomes
the
its,
end.
sorry?
Yeah, so the end. So then you can like change the word order, because Finnish is kind of a monotone language. So if you can flip the words around in the sentence to emphasize things differently.
Okay, that's interesting. So rather than changing the stress on the word, like I say this word or I say this word, that
Yeah,
had a different meaning, right? Whereas you do it by the position of the words with Finnish.
yeah.
Wow, that's okay. I decided when I was quite young that it was probably a language that was more complicated than I was willing to put the time into. I was like,
Oh,
Chinese is much more.
The Finnish teacher at the university said that she noticed that mathematically minded foreigners could pick up the language a little bit faster than humanities
Oh,
because it's a logical language in the way it's constructed.
that's interesting. I mean, in a lot of ways, Chinese is very logical as well. Like the word for computer in Chinese, I'll do the tone wrong, but it's 电脑, which basically means electric brain.
电脑，电脑，
So in some ways, Chinese, to me, to my way of thinking, seems quite logical. But then there are the tones, which I always get wrong. I'm sure if there are any Chinese viewers watching this right now, they're going to say, no, he said it wrong. You know? But yeah, it's language is amazing. I mean, so you have one of the, so I mean, I wasn't planning on going right here, but you have a song called There Are No Words.
Yes.
And in that song, you're talking about in different languages, right? Is that's the one you use the
Yeah, in
different.
different languages, it says, I love you.
Yeah, yeah, which I thought was really cool because actually you're saying there are no words, but there are tons of words, but they don't quite sum up the way that you feel. Is that the
Yeah,
intention?
I mean, you can say words, but I mean, it's bigger than the words. The feeling of loving someone is so much bigger than and any words you can use to express it.
Yeah.
I love you, yang yesterday, sua rakastahan. No matter the form, the words they take, the message carries on. Even badi yashibekohan. Shut them, though I were mute and the words would not come, my heart would beat as strong. No matter what the language, love comes from the heart. It goes around the world and then it goes
I thought that was
around
really an
Yeah.
interesting, like how you juxtaposition of those ideas because you're using all of these words, but it's not to say I love you. It's so much as it is to say these are words that don't quite hit the mark because it's bigger than that, bigger than the words, even if you use it in lots of different languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that. It actually made me think. I have interviewed a singer-songwriter from the United States as well. His name's Gary Darnell Wortham, and he just released a song called Love, Love, Love. And for some reason, for him as well, in that song, he uses different languages to express kind of the same idea, actually. And
Okay.
he's a very different artist in a lot of ways, but I just thought that was so interesting that you're talking about love and you're talking about it in different languages. And Gary thought of this exactly the same thing. If you wanted to talk about love, you'd have to express it in different languages because that's not the barrier. Like, whatever language you speak, wherever you're from, we all love.
El odio te ahogará, el odio te destruirá. Deja de amarte, que todos podamos disfrutarte. De Bach, di pesce, da puta, e vapore, da voglio mettere te, che te alcohol.
One of the things that I found really interesting about your journey is I can't really say your career because it's like you have three or four or five different ones, in terms of, do you know what I mean? Like you have You write books for children. You write songs for children. You write gospel music, um, sheet music, which obviously those are related things. Um, you know, I don't even know how to approach the question really. Like, what was the first sort of thing that you thought outside of the chemistry lab? Because, that was the first thing that you approached in terms of studying and getting the degree and all that. In terms of your book writing, songwriting, the videos that you have made, the animations, all of those things, which one of those came first? Was it the sheet music or was it, I don't know, how did that happen?
Mom had an autoharp, which is an American folk instrument,
Yeah.
and I would strum it and come up with little songs, and then I would write the lyrics down because I didn't at that time I didn't really know anything about notes or anything. So I was kind of writing songs for a while,
Mm.
and then mom put me into piano, and I learned a little bit about the theory and stuff. But I thought that the chemistry would get me farther because I wanted to make an impact on the world. And I thought that that was the way that I could do it. That was the acceptable way to do it. But I think I'm making more of an impact with the music, which I've been doing here and there all the time.
Mhm. So I guess it starts with, in terms of the music, that part of things, it starts with that, with I mean, I've used auto harps many times in my classrooms. Um, I used to teach young kids, pre-K, kindergarten kids. I've taught from 3-year-olds up to, 20. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I've used auto harps a lot because they're great. Because, if I'm teaching guitar, for example, you want to play a G chord. It's kind of hard to reach a G chord on the guitar, especially for little hands, even on little guitars. But an auto harp, you can say, okay, just press here and strum, and it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does. I like the instrument.
I think it's actually, I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but I did see a video not so long ago. There was like this virtuoso, virtuoso auto harp player. They were just like strumming really fast and playing really fast. I didn't know that was a thing until very recently.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it.
I'll see if I can find it to put a little clip of it in this chat here. I always thought it was like an introduction instrument, for people who are starting out so they understand the sounds of the chords and they can, you can pick it up fairly quickly to sing along. I saw this person playing this incredible, super fast picking, not picking, but strumming, changing the chords really quickly. And it was just like, oh, I never thought about taking that instrument that extra step. Now you write sheet music, right? Which
Yeah.
I think is in itself quite interesting because a lot of people don't do that these days. A lot of people just, use a computer or use, play by ear. So how did that come about that you decided that the best way for you to get your music across to people at some point was to write it down as sheet music rather than, I don't know, play it, record it, and put it out there?
I think part of it was because I got Final, which is now they're not going to make it anymore. That's what I've been using since 2011, I think, that sheet music program, and they're
Mm.
they're taking it away now.
Ooh.
They said that we don't want to update it anymore, so you can buy this other program.
Oh.
So there was a there are a lot of people that do sheet music, and there was for about a week there was a big it. Ah!
I can imagine. What was that?
Yeah, in the composer forums on Facebook, it was like a big deal. Like, oh no, what am I going to do?
I
But so that's what I've been using, and I got the free version first. So when we were having our family with the twins, and it was a cheap way to share my music.
mhm.
And first, when I did my first album, I had given it to a friend, and she took my album and then she wrote all the songs, and then you could share it with people that way too, so that they could play them.
Yeah. I actually love that idea because that is one of the things, there are those of us who play by ear comfortably and I can listen to your songs and play them, you know, but it reminds me there was a quote that I heard once where reading a book is like hearing the voice of the author even if they've passed away years before. It's kind of like it's a direct translation of their thoughts, And it made me think of that a little bit. Like with sheet music, when I play by ear, I'm more playing my interpretation of what I hear, We all, even if we all listen to the same thing, we hear different things.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas as much as I can interpret sheet music that I read, it's a truer representation of what you intended, I would say.
yeah, and also you don't have to hear it first. You can, I mean, those people that can sight read, they can just pick up some notes and then they can start singing it, and they've never ever heard it before.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that is something that still I think is incredible. I can sight read, but playing an instrument, playing the guitar, the piano or something, sight singing is something I have not developed to the point. Like actually just yesterday, last night I played at a local restaurant here. I'm in a Celtic band. We play traditional like Gaelic music. And we had a couple of music teachers and singers, members of a local choir that were in the audience, and our fiddle player said, "Hey, why don't you guys come up and sing with us?" And they said, "Okay, we don't know any of the songs, but do you have sheet music?" She gave them the sheet music, and they went, "Okay, let's go." So I start playing my guitar, and they start singing this song that they've never heard before. And I was like, because all they need to hear is the first chord, so they know like the
Yeah,
range, right? They don't have perfect pitch, but if they know that I'm playing an E chord, da, da. Okay. And they do the intervals. I mean, I teach
yeah,
that in my classes all the time, but to watch it happen so sort of seamlessly was like, wow, so cool. And then these like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 ladies stood up there and sang beautifully to a song that most of them had never heard before. Part of what's cool too is like you didn't just move to Finland. You moved to Finland and you have learned the language,
yeah,
right? Well enough to write songs in that language and Swedish.
kind of. I write them and then I give them to my husband, and he like says he corrects the spelling, and he goes, "No, you can't say it that way." And then we have to talk. Okay, but it has to go. It still has to, because I usually write the song in English first, and then I go, but it still has to go with the melody and the beats. So how can we then say it? So it's kind of the same meaning. So he helps a lot.
Hmm. I mean, you say that, and somebody who hasn't tried to do that before might go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense." To me, it's still amazing because there's no way I could write a song in Chinese. Like, I've been here 22 years, I think. Well, off and on, but for the most part. And even with my wife helping, my wife is Chinese, But I think it would be, I could tell her like this is the intention, and then she could try to help. But one of the things with poetry or with songwriting, you can't just translate it. Like you have to make it
No,
fit, rhythmically, all that kind of stuff.
I have a song, um, Thank You, Lord, and a Canadian helped do the arrangement for it. Stephen, his family's originally from Finland, so Stephen Pitkanen. And my husband did the translation, helped me with the translation, and then I took it to my choir leader, and she decided we were going to sing it. And there was a Swedish language teacher in the choir, and she goes, this is spoken Swedish. If you want it to be correct Swedish, you have to do this. So we had to make still a few changes and then send it back to Stephen so that he could correct it on his computer, since all the notes were in his computer, and send it back.
That's a big process. I remember when I first, well, shortly after I came to China, I was trying to learn a Chinese song, The moon reflects my heart, basically.
你问我爱你有多深，我爱你有几分？我的情也真，我的爱也真，月亮代表我的心。你问我。
Since then, there have been English versions done of it. The saxophone guy, Kenny G, he plays a version of it, and I think Sarah Brightman later sang it. At the time, I hadn't heard an English translation of the song, and I was trying to do it in English. And man, it was because even the moon reflects or represents my heart, like which word do you use there? Either one of those could be used, but you have to think, how does it fit with the melody? And it was really challenging. And that was just one song that I was trying to do at the time, you know. So yeah, I just think that element of it, the fact that you do it in the different languages as well, is really interesting. Is it the same story with the books? Like you did is it, it's not called Voyage to the Baltic.
Oh, Utflykt på Östersjön. Journey on the Baltic,
Okay, Journey on the Baltic. Okay.
kind of on this.
Yeah. And again, I mean, if you said journey or voyage, like which one works better? Um,
Yeah. Or a day out on the, or.
is it the same, or I would imagine it would be a little bit less difficult to do like even if it's translations into a book format, because then you're not working with the rhythmic sense of the word as well as the meaning. Is that true, or is it still difficult?
Well, my husband works as a translator to translate movies from English to Swedish, and I help him with that. And sometimes, like what they say in English, you have to say it in a whole different way in Swedish in order to get the same kind of meaning. So,
Hmm. So still its own challenges.
it has its own challenges. Yeah.
So then we get to It Takes Time, which you released in 2000, 9 songs, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
So you released the album, and then you started to do, or maybe these happened at the same time, I'm not sure. You just did the sheet music, but then you got licensing through.
Christian Copyright Licensing International.
Okay, so I think about how many songs that I've at least transcribed for my classes, or I've written songs, a lot of songs myself, and how did you decide to go into that? Like, how did you even know those guys were around to contact them, much less to go that route?
I think I through it. I just was on an internet search and I found it and then I researched it a little bit. And when I did get started doing the sheet music, I put a few songs on there, and it's just gotten bigger from there because I think I got like 40 songs on there now.
That's amazing. And they're played all over the world. I I
Yeah, though I get a sheet every. They used to do it biannually. Now they do it quarterly. So they give a list of 10 songs were used in the States, maybe once, maybe more times. Then there's like 5 or 6 songs that they use in the UK, and then they say this one was used in South Africa, and this 1 or 2 were used in Australia, and how many times they were used, and if they just use the lyrics, or if from the album, sometimes they use an audio and play those.
That's amazing. Again, somebody I was talking to recently, Alan Sweeney, he's in a group called the Crom. They've won a bunch of awards now as an indie rock band. Something he said popped in my head when I was thinking about what you just said. He said, these songs that I sit in my house, in my living room, and I write these songs, and they're like winning awards. Do you ever feel like that? Like this song that you sat at a moment that you had certain feelings, certain thoughts, and somebody in South Africa or in China hears that or reads the sheet music and thinks, yeah, I connect with that. I want to use that too. Like, does that ever sort of hit you?
It did. When I did my album, I made 1,000 copies, thinking, "Ooh, I'm going to sell 1,000 copies." Um, I didn't, so I sent like half of them to a mission in Africa somewhere, and they would then hand them out like tracks. So they would hand out tracks out as tracks, you know.
Okay.
So I then the minister of that mission, he wrote me back and he said that he had given one of my CDs to a dying man, and the dying man wanted to let me know that the one song I Am Waited For made his feeling about dying. He felt more at peace because he knew then he was waited for,
Hmm.
that he wasn't, I guess, that someone was there waiting for him to come and just anticipating his coming. And instead of leaving the world, you were going somewhere more special, I guess.
Wow. That, I mean, that must have felt pretty special for you as the composer.
Yeah, that it really did. It really did.
There's a room waiting for me where the streets are made of gold. I don't know when I'll get there. I just know I'll be calling it home. There's a promise that there'll be room for everyone who believes in the Lord. And through his promise, I know I am waited for. There's a chorus waiting for me.
I think that's pretty special. I guess as a songwriter, as a composer, the books that you write, that's not 100% the reason that you do it, but it is a nice feeling when you get that feedback from people that it's made a difference for someone, especially that one that was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I listened to a bunch of your songs actually. Come to Me in my garden. I like that one. The thing is, as well, I listen not just as a songwriter or whatever. I've also taught very young kids for years as well. I was a primary years music teacher for a few years, and I listened to that one, and I thought what I liked about it was it's fun, and the kids would definitely love singing along. But everything that you release has a meaning to it and has like sort of a moral to the story kind of thing, which
Yeah.
it's true. Like it's some of the songs that I've done with kids are tons of fun, but they mean really nothing. Like there's no sort of I don't know, there's no meaning to the song. It's just fun to sing. And then some of them are so heavy on the lesson part that it's like not even fun anymore for me as an adult to sing with the kids, you know? And I found from the songs the kids songs that I listen to that you've written, there's a nice balance. It has a meaning, but it's not so heavy. It's like as an adult, I go, oh, this is like it's too heavy, you know? It seems to be a good balance. So I thought that was nice.
Well, thanks. I try.
And it is hard as well. Like one of the things Nanad had pointed out, like kids' songs, nursery rhymes, let's say, people tend to go for the ones that we've all known and we all grew up and our parents grew up singing them, you know, Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever. So it's interesting to me that people are choosing newer songs like the ones that you've written to use in classrooms or in whatever those situations are, you know. Have you ever had any feedback on how that goes about? Like how do people choose your music as opposed to something we've all known forever?
I found two videos that used the Billy song
Mhm.
on TikTok. So two people have made TikTok videos using the Billy Wants a Horse to Ride.
Okay.
So I found that interesting. So
Yeah.
Billy, he wants a horse to ride, horse to ride, horse to ride. Billy, he wants a horse to ride on down in the field. Mama said, no, 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 Billy, no, 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 Billy, no, 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 Billy, not today.
Yeah, I'm curious. It's neat that people do connect with the newer stuff rather than always going back to the same thing, you know? I guess for me it'd probably be like, the classic rock music that I've loved my whole life, but at a certain point I'm like I probably don't need to listen to that Led Zeppelin song again today. I can give it a break for a bit, find something new, and then I'll always go back to Led Zeppelin. But but there are moments where I do like to hear something that I haven't heard my whole life.
yeah. Well, I mean, you change as you get older, so
That's part of it.
you need music that is there for that part of your life too.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good
Said,
point.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, Billy, no, 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 Billy, no, 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 Billy, not today.
Actually, this is totally random, but I'm curious. Canary songs, I guess it's a two-part question. First, why Canary songs? And two, on the logo of Canary songs, it has A, C, B are the notes on the staff. Was that just randomly chosen notes, or does that have a significance?
Canary songs because I'm blonde and I sing.
Oh,
That's
perfect. I love simple answers.
so, and I think I took the notes on the staff from one song, part of a piece of the melody.
A song that you wrote, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Bach, in a lot of his pieces, he used to use those letters. So B, A, and C you can use as is, but I guess there's a way that you can use H in German music is a B flat, I believe. So he would use that
No,
sequence.
no, H is a B, and a B flat is a B flat.
Oh, okay. So he would have played BACB,
Okay.
right?
A musical cryptogram is when musicians encode a word, usually their own name, into music. One of the most famous examples was Bach. How exactly did Bach do this? If you take a look at a keyboard, you'll see that there's a B, an A, and a C, but there's no H. Well, that's only true for English-speaking musicians, and Bach was a German. In German musical nomenclature, there is in fact an H. It's what I, as an English-speaking musician, would call B. Well, then what about the B in Bach's name? Well, in the German system, B is what I would call B flat. So if you want to play the name Bach on a piano, you'll need to play the notes B flat, A, C, B.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was a neat little thing. It's such a Bach thing to do, like he did all kinds of, musical riddle things that he used to do. There's the crab cannon. If you can play it forward and backward at the same time, it meets in the middle and it harmonizes all the way through the piece, forward and backward.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. It's like he was just at that point, I think he was just saying, like, I got to do something to keep myself interested. Because he was just,
You're a musical genius. I mean,
yeah, well, that's the thing. I think, he was writing music that people were, listening to and saying, yeah, that's great. Thanks. Thanks, Johan. But he was like, but at least if he hid these little sort of musical riddles and things in it, it made it interesting for him, I guess. And of course,
yeah.
hundreds of years later, people discovered that and went, what? They didn't think this guy was a genius? Like, they didn't get it,
You write
Um,
a lot of music more for yourself than you do for other people. So it was probably something he just did for himself, and now people are noticing it. He didn't do it probably for other people to notice it so much.
I, I totally agree. And actually, modern musicians have talked about that. Elton John talked about it, and Don Henley from the Eagles. And they said, at the time of writing a song, it's very personal. Very often it's very much like, just spilling out your heart onto this paper, the words and the notes that you write. Later on, it could become the world's song. If you listen to Hotel California or Your Song or something, those songs are part of so many millions of people's lives. But at the moment that they sat down to write it, they were the only ones who knew it, and it was really for them at that moment.
No, that's like Dolly Parton. Elvis wanted to record the song that Whitney Houston recorded, and he said, "But I have to own it." And she said, "No,
Yeah,
these are my babies."
yeah, yeah, exactly. Lots of people have said that, and if you think about the business side of the entertainment business, yeah, like we all want to make this something that is sustainable for us to be able to continue to do in terms of, not having to stop doing it because I need to do my 12-hour shift and I come home with no energy to write a song. So we want our music and our creations to be able to sustain us financially as well. But if we did it just for that, I suspect we wouldn't make a lot of money at it because it has to come from the heart first, and then whatever happens after that point is a different question, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On that note, you wrote the song I Know.
Yeah.
This one was very personal for you because it's to your family.
Well, it was to my husband. Yeah.
There's a video that I saw where you had photographs and memories from your whole family, and you talk about in the video it shows very sort of personal moments, right? Is that the one am I mixing up more than one song?
No, no, no. That's the song. I'm about ready to cry because I mean those pictures are very personal. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I admire that, just being willing and able to do that. Um, One of the things that I find, especially with music, is, we all have these personal ideas and we all have these um, things that are inside of us. Not everybody's willing to share that. As a musician, I think that's one of the keys to being a great musician, actually, is the willingness to let people look in your diary, and, really, you're like bearing your soul there for people to look at.
I know that you're thinking of me. I know you care for my needs. I know that you would do anything for me. I know that you'll always love me. I know you care.
What made you decide to release that? Like, how did you decide, okay, I'm just gonna put out there exactly all of this feeling?
I wrote that song and I entered it in 2013 for the Finnish part of the Eurovision Song Contest, which is international song contests here in Europe.
Hmm.
And each country picks a song and then sends it to the. But so with a friend of mine, because I had two songs, I said, which one do you think you can? Both of them were very personal. And he said, I think I can make the music to this one. So we did that. And it didn't go on. There was like 400 or 500 that year, and they only take like 2%. So I go, well, I'm going to release it anyway, since we got it. It's nice, and so we did. And then my little boy, he's a man now, but he would sing that song
Oh,
to
wow.
himself. I
Wow.
mean, it wasn't like I was singing it with him. He
Hmm.
it just so it was a song that resonated with him. So I think that's a reason I released it too, because it's an important song.
Yeah.
I know
I, yeah. Well, thank you
that
for
you'll
doing it.
always love me. I know you care how I feel. I know that you would give anything to me. And this, yes, this is what I know. And if I should
I like to do quite a bit of research before chatting with anybody. You sent through some notes that were really useful. So, first of all, thank you again for sending those. Um, One of the things that you mentioned in your notes was an illness that you've gone through.
Well, I have a chromology. A, I have, I still have it. They didn't. It's a tumor on the pituitary gland, and they got most of it. It's through surgery and radiation, but they couldn't get all of it.
The reason I mentioned that, first of all, because you sent that through, but one of the things that you said in your chat with Ninad was that you were using that as an example of how even when you go through all of these things that you think life is beating you down, basically. You didn't say those words, but that idea, keep going, keep doing what you're doing and don't give in, basically.
No, yeah, you can't just give up on. I mean, you have to push through.
I thought that was one of the things that I was thinking as I was watching that video and as I read your notes. All of these things were coming together in my head at the same time. I had watched your chat with Ninad. I had read your notes. I had seen your video. And I was thinking, man, yeah, like I hope people will take away from your music, your story, this chat, that idea that it doesn't always go well. The things, negative things happen. And all we can do is deal with that and keep moving. I always say keep walking, whatever happens, just keep walking, you know.
And it's not just about just keep walking. You have to, you take something from every experience that you have, and it makes you who you are. So you have to be willing to learn from even the bad experiences, mostly from the bad experiences, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, yeah, I've used keep walking for years and years, but you're right. It's not just keep walking. It's also like learn from those things. Um, People always say the human is the only animal that will stub its toe on the same rock twice. Hopefully, hopefully we'll learn from the experience and like you said, just become better for learning from the adversity, I guess.
Yeah.
There's something that I do in all of the interviews, all the chats that I have with people, as we come to the end of the conversation, I always ask if there was a question that you wish I had asked, but I didn't ask, what would that be? Is there something that you wish we had talked about that we haven't?
I think that, like with my, that I don't do it all by myself. Like I said, I use my husband when I translate, and I've said that I've used other people for the sheet music that have, that you can't do stuff all by yourself all the time. I
Mm,
mean, that you do have to use other people, and a lot of times with the sheet music that I do for choirs, I will give them a basic, really basic. It has the melody, it has a few chords, and I say, here. And then they take from their own knowledge and their own musical experience. And when I get that piece of sheet music back, sometimes it's how I thought it was going to be, but sometimes it's so much better than what I thought it could ever be.
mm. So it's not I mean, very little can be done in a vacuum, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you brought to mind a couple of things with that comment. One, the people of all nations. So I've listened to that a couple times now. You have a video on YouTube of, I believe you're singing it on the video online.
I'm singing as a solo, but it is written for a choir. But
But the piano part, so the arranger for that was, I'm going to say the name wrong, Hannah Lepala.
Lepala, yeah.
Lepala. Okay. Wow. Like I love to listen to songs a couple of times. The first time I just listen to the song and I just enjoy the song for what it is. But then if I think there are moments where I'd like to go back and listen to some more specific aspects, I tend to give every song at least three listens, you know. You know? That
Yeah, yeah.
one, I ended up listening the third time through, I was listening almost exclusively to the piano, you know. because there are so many little things in there. I mean, you came up with the melody line and the words, and that is really nice, and that makes it a song that I would want to listen to again. And then there are the chordal changes. I'm not sure who's playing the piano in that video.
Shell Frisk.
Okay. It's really well played, and I that arrangement, the piano parts, there are some parts where it jumps up like an octave and just does a little, even a single note that's just like really well placed. Anyway, all I'm saying is I really like that song, and I thought the arrangement was really well done.
I think it just has chords and melody, so he improvised in his piano playing. The piano part isn't written for that piece, so it just chords and melodies. And well, he had the harmonies that he was looking at too, because he had the choir parts in front of him. But I only sang the solo parts.
Right. Well, congratulations to both of you, because I imagined that he was playing that as it was written, but now that's actually even cooler that he was looking at the choir parts and interpreting them for the piano, sort of as he went. That's
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I mean he's like you. He teaches at the. He's a music teacher, so he plays several instruments. He plays the saxophone and the block flute and recorder and piano and
One of the things I think I'm curious about, you mentioned like how you don't do this alone. How does that work? Like, I have collaborated with people who, like you said with your husband, you show him stuff and he helps you out, and I've done stuff like that with friends or things like that. People I've met online somehow, and we have a common interest in getting this song out. What percentage of what you do with people, like the animators, for example? So my question is, like, what percentage of that time are you just working with people collaborating because they want to get this project done with you? And how much of that is like you hire somebody to do the project?
well, most of the collaborators I worked with for the sheet music, they share part of the royalties or they share part of the ownership of the song. So I haven't paid them so much. The animator, and then for doing the music, the guy that did the music for that video, he lives in Helsinki, so I sent him the sheet music, and then he was able to do his own interpretation for the music based on what he had with the sheet music. That the animator, he lives right close to me, so we went over the storyboards and discussed, and then he used his own imagination for it. And then I would say he did one where the little girl was just like flew the bowl. And
Mhm,
like you said, in my songs, there is a kind of a lesson too, even in the children's songs.
mhm.
So I said, no, she's not just going to throw the bowl at her mom and say, I don't want this. She has to just politely say, no, I don't think I want this, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting too, because, as much as the animator will be doing the drawing, like it still has to be an interpretation of your intention, you know.
Yeah.
So to have that discussion, is it fair to say that all the things you do, if it's people playing your music or if it's people helping with the sheet music or the animations, these are people that you would share the royalties, share the earnings, but you don't specifically pay them beforehand for the work they do.
I mean, the animator, I did pay him quite
Hmm.
a bit, but because it took him months and months and months to do. but mostly on the music side of it, I haven't. I mean, for the album, for the guy that did the recording and stuff, but most of the sheet music, it's either I do it myself for the kids' songs, or if I do the choir stuff. When I get money from CCLI, some of the people aren't members of CCLI, so then I will then pay them out of the royalties I get. So if I get paid, they get paid. If if I don't get paid, nobody gets paid.
Okay, and is that done like you agree that beforehand, or is that done sort of how do you?
Yeah, we kind of agree that beforehand, and some of them, they, since they are working as music teachers and stuff, they can, and choir directors, they feel that doing that is their job anyways, and they're getting paid to do music. So if they're doing it for me or they're doing it for someone else, they're, if they're working in a church like Stephen, he goes, I'm getting paid to do this anyway. So if I'm doing it for you, then I don't need extra pay for that. And also Frederick Erlandson, he also works in the church and leads the choir. And he goes, I'm getting paid to do that anyway. So if I'm getting paid by them or you, it doesn't matter.
Right. Okay, yeah. I mean, that all makes sense because I'm just thinking, from that perspective of I think what you're doing overall is all really cool stuff. The fact that you're expressing yourself in a lot of different ways and benefiting a lot of people, not only the people who watch or listen, but also the people who are participating in the process.
Well, the one is, I have a song, I don't know if you saw it, My Feet Are Restless.
Lord, my feet are restless. They need somewhere to go. Please give them a path to take that leads them to your throne.
I didn't know he supposedly resonated with that song so much that he did a YouTube video of it. I didn't even know he'd done that. So obviously it was something that he felt that he wanted to do, so that he felt it was enough his that he could do that without even asking my permission. I'm glad he did it. I don't care.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's part of the thing too. I struggle with that sometimes, when I play a cover of somebody's song, my intention is to honor that song and to do my interpretation of it. It's not to steal and pretend that I wrote Stairway to Heaven. I mean, like, like nobody's gonna think I wrote it. Like, but then if I put that on YouTube, I'll get blocked or I'll get a copyright strike or, you know, I think so. I think the way that you're thinking of it makes a lot more sense to me, where it's still your song, you wrote the song, but what people bring to it makes it bigger than it was or better than it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really nice way to look at it. And as long as, like you said, if you get paid, other people get paid. So it's also fair. It's not just like this art world kind of understanding of each other. There's actually a practical moment to it as well. If money does change hands, it's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for chatting with me. And I tend to go on these tangents sometimes. I hope it was still comfortable and fun to have a chat.
Yeah, it was really comfortable. It didn't really feel like an interview. It felt like um, Jere B from the Entre Musician. He said an interview should be like sitting down in a coffee shop.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be like question answer question answer.
totally. I've talked with other people about that too. Like I don't think of it that way. Like I have listened to your music. I have done the research. Um, just so you know, I have also written a blog post about based on the research that I found as well. So when this episode goes out, there will be a blog post to accompany it.
Okay. Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So for me, like I do all the research and I know what you're talking about and those the details, but I would I don't think I would be doing this for very long if my formula was here are my 12 questions.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't respond to what you're bringing to the conversation. It's putting everything into a neat little box, which I would find really boring. So I've really enjoyed the chat, and I really appreciate that you took all this time to chat with me as well. So thank you.
Okay. That was fun.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.